Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Cindy Barg, and I am so blessed to be here, and thank you and for welcoming me and for having me. And just a little side note, Julia goes back because my oldest daughter and she are best friends from high school. So I have seen this beautiful woman just blossom and become such an incredible person. And we used to stay up till 2:30 in the morning over high school, her days in high school, and speak all these incredible spiritual things. So I'm so glad she's here, and I'm so glad I'm able to fill in for her today. All right, I'm going to throw out this quote, okay? And let me see if anybody can figure out who it's from, and some of you will know this, okay? Life is what happens to you when you are making other plans. Anybody know who said that? Who said that? Say it out loud. John Lennon, indeed, okay? John Lennon indeed said that. Suffering sears us, folks, but love transforms us. And no matter what brings you here today, whether it's to touch comfort or to stay connected, or if you've had a loss or a struggle, the loss of an animal, the loss of a job, it could be the death of somebody, it could be any loss of a relationship. It still feels we have the same impact with that, right? We all feel the same way. But it takes an insurmountable amount of courage for you all to be here and to share your vulnerabilities, because vulnerability lets you see that you're still alive, and that is hope. Now, through the lens of human reason, horrible things happen. And through the lens of universal understanding, horrendous things happen as a path to collectively stretch ourselves beyond our limitations, right? It's not always that easy. One person, one light bulb moment at a time. And initially, and maybe never, even just that statement may be too much for anyone here to even comprehend, or even myself. But I want to ask all of you today, please, what would be the gift in your loss? Can you see the gift in your struggle? What gift can you truly claim in your own darkest hour? And would it be even possible, folks, to continue to go on and believe and love even after loss and struggle? Now, in the book Corinthians 1, chapter 13, they state, "And now these three things remain: hope, faith, and love. They remain imperishable, and they remain immortal." God, in His goodness, gives us the privilege of possessing these gifts, as they will remain with us forever. And I promise you, they will. And I've always thought that it's very obvious that humans don't do death very well. Would you agree? We just don't do death well. We appear to be organically challenged. But death is a sequence, a cellular sequence of living. It's a part of living. The minute we're born, we're dying. The most innate instinct we have is to love. It is the most important and imperative instinct we have, is to love. But avoiding pain displaces the love, which in turn intensifies our resistance to the sting of loss. And grief, folks, grief is as personal as our DNA. Taking away our grief leaves us in unhinged denial. We cannot heal what we cannot feel. We cannot heal what we cannot feel. Now, for as long as I remember, I always believed that life continues even after death. And our body is merely the cloak that houses the soul. And the veil between the earthly plane and the astral plane is a blink away. It's this close, folks. I always had this ability as a young girl to be able to see things inside of people and hear things, and their energies would rush through me. So much so that I would almost be taken aback that I could hear things. And despite the fact that I knew I had these abilities, I was really unable to clearly articulate them at that time because I was a young girl. So I had no need to understand these sensitivities inside of me, so I thought. However, in 1971, I became privy to my first encounter with the other side, and it was one I was awakened to. I was in a very tragic car accident where I was confined to a hospital bed, grasping for any threads left inside of me, and I was there for about 4.5 months. And as I clung to life, I also acquired a rare humility. And we can never have enough, right? We can never have enough humbleness or humility. It's really a part of letting go and loving. It really is. So Massachusetts General Hospital became home for myself, my older brother, and my mother, who was 4 months pregnant. And within split seconds, my world and everything in it became into a debilitating halt. We were hit 100 miles an hour head on by a car coming toward my dad, who was driving. My father was killed, Our beloved boxer dog, Beezy, was shot by the state trooper because she was in so much pain and because she was mangled and he was so distraught. The state trooper happened to love animals, so he shot her to put her out of her pain. And I awoke to a flood of lights and innumerable doctors and nurses towering over me with every tube that you can imagine inserted inside my body. I did not have the capacity to go to the bathroom on my own. I was told I would never, ever walk again. I was 13 years old, nor would I ever, ever be able to have children. I was given a 10% survival rate. Now, my older brother was lying a room away in a coma for a week. He was in a coma for 2 weeks, rather. And when he gained consciousness, he would always come into my room and sit next to me for hours, watching me on end, because I was somebody tangible for him, that he could see and that he could touch. And I was still not able to walk. He was my glimmer of hope, a familiar being that offered me comfort and strength. Now, my mother was located in a different ward. Now, believe this or not, this is a wonderful story, just to get on a side note here. My parents were told that they could never get pregnant again after me. My older brother was 17 months older. And they tried, and they tried, and they tried, and they tried, and they tried. And eventually they got pregnant 14 years later. Now, the only room available to my mother, and I want you to remember this, she was already 4 months pregnant, the only room in the entire Mass General was a room shared with a nun. And we all know at that time, when you're 4 months, you can't make a decision at that point. You must go on with this child. So needless to say, what happened was that this nun became sort of an outlet of the pain and struggle that was outside of those walls, a comfort for my mother. And this woman and this nun never judged my mother, but just sat and listened with her for those months that my mother shared that room. And every doctor relayed to my parents that they could never get pregnant again. Now, I wound up spending 4.5 months in that intensive pediatric ward. And invincibility, when you're 13, you think that nothing is ever going to happen and everything is going to be okay. But it wasn't. It was no longer familiar. I was sharing a room with 3 other girls my age, 4 girls in one room, 4 boys in the other room. Was said it was an intensive pediatric ward. And every child on that ward had either a life-threatening injury or a catastrophic illness. And each day I would watch someone be attempted to be resuscitated with heroic measures. And I paid heed to children fighting for their lives and to my fellow floor mates who died in their sleep and even in my room every single month. I quietly observed parents screaming and sobbing in the wings behind the curtains of their deceased child. And I also remember little Teresa. She was 10 years old. She was in my room the longest, just as much as I was. She had the most gorgeous face I had ever seen. She was ravaged with leukemia, so her head was always bald. She lost her hair. But she had the most beautiful opal brown eyes. And her father owned a pizzeria, a really humble man. I remember him so well, even to this day. And every Wednesday night, he would bring boxes and boxes of pizza to all of us. Of course, none of us kids could eat it, but every doctor and nurse in that hospital showed up in our room every Wednesday night. Honestly. None of the kids obviously could participate in the feeds, yet we were all able to experience, as much as this sounds crazy, a wonderful camaraderie, because that became our new norm, was being in a hospital. One evening, after Teresa's father left, Teresa went into cardiac arrest, and I could hear her somewhere, code blue, and it was so loud, and I realized it was in my room, and I can remember my heart pounding really quickly, and hordes of doctors and nurses surged onto her body, attempting to resuscitate her. Within 3 minutes, I heard applause. And I never knew when the next child would slip away, and I often thought I would be the next child to die. I prayed that Teresa would not have her last breath, while I was still sharing a room with her. Now, 1 month later, and it was already up to 4.5 months, and hobbling on crutches, and remember, the doctor said I'll never be able to walk again, I was finally released from the hospital. My brother and my mother, with her belly now protruding at 6 months, were also released, with all these doctors and nurses applauding our recovery as we walked down the corridor and into the parking lot of that hospital. Now, Teresa was still a patient in the hospital when I just left, but I was given strict orders by the doctors that I needed to go back in 3 months because I still had a lot of residual effects. I still had tubes inside me, but I walked. I walked slowly, but I walked. And they were all crying. So 3 months later, when I returned to Massachusetts General Hospital, I asked about Teresa. I put the finger on the button. We went up to the intensive pediatric ward. I was so excited to see her, and hoping that she would have gone home by now. And all of a sudden, I found one of the nurses, and her name was Karen. And Karen ran over to me, and she squealed, and she says, "Oh my God, Cindy, look at you. Look how wonderful you look. It's only been 3 months." And I finally asked the question I did not want the answer to: how is Teresa? She took my hands, and she held them very tightly. And she said, "She passed away 3 months ago, 2 hours after you left." Now, I was utterly broken. The peace I had prior was just absent. And instantly I experienced a great burden and also a restlessness because I continued to live and Teresa did not. I ran by myself to the quiet room, which is known as the quiet room at Mass General Hospital, a room that's only designated for anyone whose heart is filled with shattered pieces of glass and heartache and the anguish of the most unmistakable and profound variety. It is a room that personified the cruelest pain, the loss of somebody you loved. There is nothing you can do to restore that peace of mind that you're so desperate to have back. Pain does not discriminate, right? It doesn't ever discriminate. It certainly did not discriminate in those 4 walls. And as I continued to let out hysterical sobs, and where judgment would not be challenged, I sank on the floor. Basically, I couldn't even breathe. I was so distraught. And without warning, and this is an absolutely true story, without warning, a brilliant, white, soft light circled around me. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I looked up, and there stood Teresa's silhouette. I actually saw her. I could see her, but this time I saw her whole. I never knew her whole except for internally the beauty of who she was and the kind person she was. I could see her beautiful hair. She had a full head of hair. And, I saw her. I remember her stunningly big eyes and her round bald head and her fragile body always curled up in a perpetual ball to assuage her own brokenness when she was in that bed. Yet I knew her perfect, as I said early, internally. Today, in that moment, she came perfectly whole. Her hair was flowing, her hair framing her beautiful face, and she was no longer plagued with illness. She was completely perfect. And then I could feel a chill of air swoop around me, and within a fraction of a second, Teresa looked directly at me, literally, and spoke and said to me, "It is okay, Cindy. I wanted to wait until you left. I am fine, and I am in no more pain. I love you." I silently thanked Teresa for waiting until I left the hospital. My anguish was instantly lifted. I watched the light move forward and disappear into the ethers. Teresa was gone. An impeccable stillness and peace came over me. I was very grateful for that moment. So I'm going to ask you all, how can we learn to use all the experience of our lives, including the difficulties, the struggles, and the losses, to open our hearts fully, to quiet the mental chatter, and to pulsate with life and enthusiasm? Well, we have to. We have to. It is imperative. Because the only thing that's going to heal us is love. Love is the only thing that heals. I want everybody to expect a miracle, even in the most daunting of times. The marvel of miracles is they happen daily. And even in the throes of transition and grief, life-altering events, and just daily living, understanding the gifts in the struggle and seeing the miracle can be a laborious task, I know. It can be very difficult. But miracles, folks, are so near to us, so divinely and timely created. We often miss the opportunity to be fully cognizant of them. Is that correct? How many of you have missed those miracles? So important. There is no doubt that struggle can be excruciatingly daunting. Now, in the book 5 of the Romans, chapter 3, quote, "Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and hope." Hope is what keeps us moving. It is imperative that we have hope to see our faith, as faith rests in all of us. Not having hope is not an option. Now, the phone rang early on Sunday in September for me in the year 1994. It was a delightfully beautiful sunny day filled with promise. My girls were very young. I had just taken them out for a walk. We had just taken one of their friends home. We had brownies baking in the oven. And when you walk in, how lovely it is. Always just smell the aroma of something baking, right? It's always lovely. So we got home, and all of a sudden, I'm sorry, this was in 1984. I meant 1984. I get a phone call, and I answer the phone call, and it says, "Hi, Cindy. I wanted to let you know that I just found out I have cancer." And I gasped, and I gently asked Lisa, who was my very best friend, how she was. And Lisa replied very nonchalantly and said, "Don't worry, Cindy, it's just Hodgkin's, and I'm going to be all right." We decided that we would get together the next day. Lisa hung up, and I was frozen in time. You would think with all the things I've already experienced, this would be a piece of cake, but it wasn't. Because grief is like the seasons, it comes and goes, and it creeps up on you, and you never know when you're going to have these feelings, but it's okay to have these feelings. My mind paced at 1,000,000 miles per minute, and I was still not grasping what I heard, because even though I saw so much death and dying in that hospital, she was my friend, she was my counterpart, it was still unfathomable for me to think that she had cancer. Now, Lisa was an incredibly gifted artist, filling canvases with oil paints that were already being recognized. I was just coming off of a long tour, singing and dancing from a Broadway show, and both of us were reconciling what we wanted to do with our lives. We just didn't know at that time. She wanted to paint for a living. I wanted to use my artistic skills in a different venue. Both of us were unsure of our direction, and both of us wound up deciding to waitress where we met, completely unaware of how our choices would bring us together as best friends years later. Now, prior to Lisa being diagnosed, she had mentioned that she wanted to go on for higher education. I rallied for her and gave her the thumbs up to do it. I had just applied for my master's, and I would be starting school the following fall. Lisa was going to be ultimately accepted on a full scholarship out west, so we knew that we would create new memories, whether it was East Coast or West Coast, and our friendship would always remain as loving and as strong as it was. We were both thrilled for one another, and we were so looking forward to this new chapter in our lives. Now, we all know, folks, how many of you sail? How many of you love sailing or know about it? Okay, so we all know, right, that the eye of the sailor, unexpectedly caught up in a hurricane, knows his only hope is to find himself in the eye of the storm and remain inside of it, moving within the storm at its center until it subsides. And sometimes that can take days, it can take weeks, vigilant effort it takes to make sure that happens. And it is assumed that within that eye, while the raging storm swirls all around that sailor, both he and his craft will be safe, because that's what you want to be, is to be safe. Now, I was hoping that Lisa would weather the eye of her storm and land safely back into perfect health. Lisa, unfortunately, was continuing to go downhill, and she was brought back for the hospital 4 months later, only to be misdiagnosed completely. She was completely misdiagnosed. She had lymphoma of her lungs, and I was devastated. Her storm was far from over. Now, I received a call from Lisa's mother 2 weeks after her second diagnosis, and she asked me if I could please come over to visit. Lisa was living with her parents at that time because she was very sick, and they lived in Marblehead, which is a beautiful island off the coast of the northern shore of Boston. Now, Lisa had the most remarkable brown hair. It was her trademark. It was beautiful and thick and down to here. And a huge clump had just fallen out, and the first of many to follow. I arrived at her home, and I sat with Lisa as she was mourning the loss of her hair and also acknowledging the seriousness of her life. And out of the blue, Lisa always had a sense of humor, even in the most painful of times. She asked me, "What do you think I would look like with red hair, Cindy?" And I said, "You know, Lisa, only you can pull it off." So we laughed heartily. And 2 weeks later, Lisa and I were in a wig shop in Boston, trying on a myriad of wigs in various colors and lengths. And Lisa chose 3 wigs. She walked off with 3 wigs, one really bright one, one sheer black, and one with blonde streaks in it. Now, though Lisa's disposition was exceptionally loving and seemingly fearless, it was apparent that Lisa was very, very cognizant of the fact that many of her dreams were not going to be actualized. 2 months later, Lisa was brought into Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, and she never left. Every day I would visit Lisa, and I asked her what she wanted me to bring her. I wanted to bring her something more significant. And she always did this. She put her hand up to her chin, and she sort of cocked her head, and she goes, "Let me think." And all of a sudden she goes, "I want you to bring me one flower that day. One flower, that's all